You don't need to worry about words, so please just sing along with me.
Shabbat Shalom, dear friends. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. So good to be with you in person, and so good to be with our friends joining us on the live stream tonight. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Tonight we come together to experience the joy and the wholeness and the peace that is Shabbat. So may we enjoy this time together to take in and experience all that's good, all that's holy in the world around us and within us. During this sacred time and in this sacred place, as well as in the holiness of our homes, may we let go of the fears and the frustrations of this past week as best we can, as we just give ourselves this time to slow down, this time to reflect, this time to enter the peace and the joy that is Shabbat. Well, speaking of joy, it is a joy tonight to be joined by our bat mitzvah this Shabbat, Scarlett Kirschenbaum, and Scarlett's parents with us tonight. Mazel tov to Scarlett and Jen and Jeff and Maddie and Molly joining us tomorrow morning. We are now honored to call upon Scarlett and her parents to bring in the light and bring in the warmth and bring in the joy of Shabbat. We're on page 120 and page 121. Page 120 and 121. Please come on up. I've got the microphone for whoever would like to hold it. Now on page 121, there are two choices. So if you guys made a selection, there's this. So we usually do this. Sure. We'd like to do that together. Mm-hmm. So then we'll do that, and we'll face the congregation, do that, and then we'll do the lighting. Right down here. Okay. So we'll start with English. Yeah, let's start with English.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have known the light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We'd be honored to have you to continue to stand here as we all stand together as a community of family and friends with our Sabbath candles lit. Our tradition here at Temple Sinai, many homes throughout the world, is to say blessings for family, blessings of peace and wholeness and well-being for us, for the entire world. We invite you to please join us in this family blessing. You can find it on the laminated sheet before you. Please join us.
May God bless you and keep you. May He shine His face upon you and grace you. May He lift His presence unto you and grant you peace. May God bless you and keep you. May she shine her face upon you and grace you. May she lift her presence unto you and grant you peace. And grant you peace.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov. Thank you so much. Please be seated, everybody. Make yourselves comfortable. Well, let's turn in our prayer books now to page 127. Page 127. We're at the bottom of the page, and let's join together in this Sabbath prayer. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope. For Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living. For Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness. For Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Well, we now welcome officially the presence of Shabbat, as our people have done for centuries. Picture that we are living in the land of Israel. It is the 16th century, and there is a Jewish community, a very spiritual Jewish community in the city of Tzfat, in the upper part of Israel, in the mountains. Has anybody been to Tzfat? Raise your hand. Oh, a number of people. Look at you all. All right, you guys know Tzfat. Very mystical city. It's an art colony. It's the San Francisco of, I don't know what the best analogy is.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, right? So what they used to do in the 16th century, what they started doing, is they'd go out to the mountains at the beginning of Shabbat when the sun was setting. They'd dress in white as brides and grooms to greet the presence of Shabbat. The sun was setting, and they composed this song, and they sang this song to welcome the Sabbath bride. And so we sing that song that they started centuries ago. It's called Lecha Dodi. Come, beloved, to meet the bride, to meet the presence of Shabbat. We're on page 138 and 139. Page 138 and 139. We join together in Lecha Dodi.
La 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 Lecha Dodi.
Ya la 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 likrat kala.
La 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 b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לה 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 לך דודי, לה 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 לקראת כלה, לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לה 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 לך דודי, לה 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 לקראת כלה, לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה.
I want to invite you to please rise and turn towards the doorways to greet the Sabbath bride.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לה 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 לך דודי, לה 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 לקראת כלה, לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבל, לה 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 לך דודי, לה 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 לקראת כלה, לה 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 פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה.
And please be seated, everybody. Cantor, I thought of a better analogy than San Francisco.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Well, San Francisco is a good one for,
pretty good.
just the culture, the creativity, the art, and all that. Has anybody heard of Dharamsala in India? It's where the Dalai Lama and Tibetan Buddhism have been in exile since the Chinese kicked them out, decades ago. And that's similar to the Jewish mystical tradition because the Jewish leadership was also in exile. Jewish people were kicked out of Spain in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. A lot of those Kabbalists were from Spain. So they relocated, they were in exile, they created a spiritual center in Israel and made Tzfat the spiritual center up in the hills, like the Dalai Lama's up in the hills near the Himalayas. So I'm going to go with it's like Dharamsala and San Francisco. All right, now that we have that solved, let us turn to page 144, and we come to the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבי, בעלמא יפרח ירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
We now turn to page 146. We come to our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. We invite you to please rise.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We now open our hearts to the divine in life, to the source and wellspring of goodness and blessing. We express the unity of God and God's creation with the Shema, page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
And please be seated, everybody. Unless you happen to be a bat mitzvah, and in that case, Scarlett, we'd love to have you please come on up and lead us in the V'ahavta, which you can find on page 154, everybody, page 154. Scarlett, let's get this set up. Okay. Whenever you are ready, we will join you.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאור על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים Liot lehem Elohim ani Adonai lehem.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's hear it for Scarlett. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you for leading us tonight, for being with us tonight before your big day tomorrow morning. So, Scarlett, people were doing the sacred Pac-Man. Do you like the sacred Pac-Man? Do you like the wash your hands and that? You like the Pac-Man. What about this one, the universal sign language for applause? Pac-Man? All right, Pac-Man it is. Well, this is for Scarlett. Thank you again so much. Let's turn to page 157, everybody. Page 157. My goodness, we always have a song of redemption when we pray in Judaism, and we always have a prayer that reminds us of our roots as a people who were freed from slavery and who made their way to a promised land. Let's read together on the top of page 157 as we get ready to sing that song that our ancestors sang at the Red Sea. Together we pray, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Well, now comes a time in our service where we have a prayer for the nighttime, for peace, for shelter, for protection. If you'll please join me, we have a handout. This is an original of mine, and it's a prayer that we have just to have that moment of shelter.
We need your strength tonight, as we do every night. Shelter us. Please grant us peace of mind, all worries far behind. Shelter us. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us with your peace. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us with your peace. Please guard this night of rest let it be one that's blessed. Shelter us. Let us lie down in peace. Let pain and violence cease. Shelter us. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us with your peace. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us with your peace. Amidst uncertainty, we need security. Please shelter us.
Thank you, Cantor. It's a lovely composition and sentiment. Well, in a few months, the American Jewish world is going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first female rabbi in the United States. Name was Sally Presant, is Sally Presant. And she graduated from my alma mater, Hebrew Union College, the Rabbinical Seminary, in 1972. Now, in 1972, she was about to be ordained. A lot of the press was saying the first female rabbi ever. This is going to be the first female rabbi ever. True in America, but not true throughout the world, because the first female rabbi was named Regina Jonas. And she was in Berlin. She was a Berlin-born rabbi. She studied in 1935. She was ordained in Germany. And so it was 85 years ago, just over 85 years ago, the first female rabbi in the world was ordained. There may have been some before, but this is what we know through history. If you take a look at page 165, we have the words. We have the teachings of Rabbi Regina Jonas of blessed memory. Bottom of page 165, she taught, God has placed abilities and challenges in our heart without regard to gender. Each of us has the duty, whether man or woman, to realize those gifts God has given. Each of us has the duty to realize the gifts that God has given each one of us. So in that spirit, as we come to the heart of Jewish worship, the Amidah, may our prayers motivate us and inspire us to realize those gifts that God has given each one of us. So we're on page 164. We're going to go along the right-hand pages with the Hebrew. We invite you to please rise for HaTefillah, the prayer.
Adonai, Sefata Tifta, Ufi Agite Milatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imatenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chastei Avot ve'imahot, U'mei Geula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Be'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah, Rav LeHoshia, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, וחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מלחמות הבא גבורות, ומדום מלך ממית ומחיה, ומזריח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
And please be seated, everybody. Let's turn to page 177. Page 177. One of my favorite prayers, a prayer of gratitude and thanksgiving and appreciation for all that we have. We're on the top of 177. Let's join together in this prayer of gratitude. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lehodot. Well, we can close our prayer books now, close our books, but we'll keep our hearts open as we spend a few moments, each one of us, in our very own personal silent prayer and contemplation, offering our own words to connect with the divine, to connect with life. It may be through words, it may be through silence, it may come in many forms. But each individually, we spend a moment now in silent prayer or contemplation.
Hopefully by now you've had a moment to conclude your personal meditations, and if not, I want to encourage you to feel free to continue to do so. We're going to continue now on page 180 with Yihu Livratzon. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our heart be acceptable before Adonai our God.
Yihu Livratzon imrei fi v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri v'goali Yihu Livratzon imrei fi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Yiyu l'ratzon, imrei fi v'hagion libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, tzuri v'goali. Yiyu l'ratzon, imrei fi v'hagion libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Tzuri v'goali.
We'd like to invite our Bema guests to come on down to the congregation, and we're all going to head down there. I am going to turn this on. Can you all hear me okay? All right. Well, we all want to join together for a discussion about this week's Torah portion, as we do. We like to call it Torah Gems, looking for gems, pearls of wisdom and insight to be able to guide us in our lives from our tradition. And boy, it's easy to do in the book of Genesis, these amazing stories and teachings that we find in the first book of the Torah. So sometimes I'll ask the kids in religious school sort of a trick question. I'll say, who were the first Jewish people? And sometimes they'll say Adam and Eve. I'll say, good guess, but no. And then they might say Noah and Noah's family. Very good guess, but not quite. It is, in fact, the folks who were introduced to us actually at the end of the Parashat Noach in the second Torah portion. We were introduced to them, but really we were introduced to them last week in the portion Lech Lecha, and we see them again this week. We're talking about Abraham and Sarah, who I like to call the George and Martha Washington of Judaism. They are the founders of Judaism. The question is why? Why them? And I got a couple of teachings tonight from this week's Torah portion and last week's Torah portion to help answer why Abraham and Sarah. And tomorrow, Scarlett's really going to answer that question with a great story that she's going to be talking about. So I'm going to try not to tell her story tonight. That's for tomorrow. That's for everybody here tomorrow. So this is how this works. For those of you who don't know, it's like a page of Talmud. You have a main text in the middle, then you have commentary around the sides, like a page of Talmud. Our main text in the middle, the first one is this week's Torah portion, Vayera, and last week's Torah portion, Lech Lecha. And then we've got two teachings. And so what I'd like to do, I realize I need to go back up here. Now I'm not going to, let me ask this question. Who's feeling energetic tonight? Susanna, you're feeling energetic? All right, great. All right, Philip, I wasn't going to call on you because you did it last time, and I don't want to take advantage. So Susanna, could I ask you to help me with this microphone? I'm going to call on people to read some of the teachings and share that with us, so they'll need a microphone. And so can I give this to you now? Great. I will let you know in just a moment when we're ready to start looking for volunteers, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's start with the first text. This is the very beginning of this week's Torah portion, Vayera, right at the beginning of Genesis 18, verse 1. And so I'm right in the middle of the page, and I'll read the text, and then we'll share an insight, and then we'll discuss it. So the Eternal appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he was sitting at the entrance of the tent at about the hottest time of the day. So picture Abraham He's 99 years old. He is sitting at the entrance of his tent at the hottest time of the day. That doesn't sound very wise in the Israeli heat to be doing that. We're going to see why he does that. Looking up, he's sitting at the tent, looking up, and he saw, lo, 3 men standing opposite him. Seeing them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to meet them. He bowed down to the ground. He said, "My lords, if I have found favor in your sight, please do not pass your servant by." Now we're going to find out who these 3 men are, but all that Abraham knows at this point is 3 guys appeared in front of his tent, and he is running to greet them and take care of them. So let's find out why he was sitting there, and then we'll continue. So who would like to read insight number 1? We'll start with the first one. There are 2 paragraphs. Let's just do the first paragraph. Who would like to read the first insight from the Midrash? Any takers? Philip. And then Tina, you can do the next one. So Susanna, thank you. Come on over. Philip's going to help us out. Thanks, Susanna.
Why was Abraham sitting in the door of his tent? To watch for passing strangers whom he might invite into his abode.
Okay, so thank you, Susanna, and thank you, Philip. So he's looking for people to be hospitable to. He's just sitting there waiting for somebody to come that he can help out and he can give food and drink and take care of. So when we look at the character of Abraham and Sarah and say, why were they chosen to be the first Jewish people and not Noah, not Adam and Eve and other people, we see a little bit of their character, at least Abraham's character right here. He's being very hospitable. Now, what's amazing about this, and by the way, so the text says he ran, okay? He didn't walk. He didn't say, oh, I better go take care of these people in front of me. He ran to do it. He was eager to do it. He bowed down as a sign of respect to them. The text goes on. I didn't have room to put it here. He then runs to his wife Sarah. He says, Sarah, we have guests. Would you please go make some cakes, go make some bread? I'll go out to the back to one of the boys who's helping us out, and we'll find a calf, and we'll make milk and cheese, and we'll cook a delicious meal. So he is running around being there being the hostess with the mostess. That didn't sound right. They're being the hosts most. And so they're very hospitable. Now what's amazing about this is all the more remarkable that Abraham is running around if you look at the verses immediately preceding chapter 18. Abraham just had a circumcision. Not at 8 days old, but at 99 years old. That was a major, major surgery he had back in the day where they didn't have Cedar Sinai docs and nurses being able to take care of you. He was on his own, and so it's all the more remarkable that he was sitting outside with the heat bearing down on him as he's convalescing, and then he sees people, strangers, and he's running to take care of them. Can't imagine how he could run to do that after a circumcision, but it's all the more remarkable his eagerness to be hospitable to these strangers. So our tradition says of Abraham, and by extension Sarah, they are the epitome of the Hebrew word chesed, which means loving kindness. Gemilut chasadim, deeds of loving kindness. What Abraham and Sarah are doing right now are deeds of loving kindness to these people that they don't even know. And our tradition says Abraham is the model, the paragon, Sarah, the paragon of that virtue and of that character. Let's talk about that for a second. Any thoughts? All right, Cantor's a thought. So Susanna, if we could pass that to Cantor. Thank you.
So, as Rabbi pointed out, the fact that he had just had a circumcision and that it was hot outside and that he was old and he ran to greet them, but not even just that, but the very first sentence was that the eternal, that God had appeared to him. It's so important to greet guests that he turned away from maybe having a conversation with God. That's how important it was that he first had to take care of the needs of guests that were passing through, strangers. I feel like that really epitomizes just how important it is to show hospitality and kindness to strangers, to everyone, because he's the very first example of that.
Very nice. Thank you, Cantor. A very good point, and we're going to look at that a little bit more in depth at the next teaching. It's going to go talk about that a little bit. So thank you, Cantor. Susanna, do you have a thought about it?
Yes, my thought is that, like how she said, like it was the first time, even though Abraham was going through a hard time in his life, like he wanted to help out these strangers and give them kindness, and I feel the same way sometimes. Like we have to show kindness towards others, even if we don't agree with the person or like them or what they do. It can be hard, but sometimes you have to do it.
Beautiful teaching. Thank you, Susanna. Yes, sometimes it is hard to be kind. It was certainly hard for Abraham in that moment, but it did not stop him from doing that. So you're right. So this value, this character trait of chesed, of loving kindness, was so powerful in them, and it's a model for how we can live our lives, and how, Susanna, you're describing how you live your life. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So let us continue now in the next teaching. And now I want you to focus on, I want you to think about what Cantor said. I want you to look in the middle of the page and look at the highlights. Mine are yellow, yours are gray. Forgive me, we were trying to save some money for not printing in color. At verse 3. So let's go to verse 1, and then we'll go to verse 3. So as Cantor reminds us, the Eternal appeared to Abraham, and then he saw these three men, and he said, "My lords." And the Hebrew word that I've highlighted for you is none other than the word Adonai. My lords. Literally, when we say Adonai, literally it's my lords. We understand it as my Lord. Adoni would be the Hebrew for my Lord. By the way, you go to Israel and you call somebody Adon, it's Mr. So Adon Ginsburg, Adon so-and-so, Adoni, my kind sir, whatever. So Adoni is the singular, Adonenu would be our Lord, and Adonai is literally my lords. So he's talking to three guys, so that's why it's plural, my lords. But is that the reason that it's plural? Is that the reason it's the word Adonai? And where was God in this? Where at verse 1 it says the Eternal appeared to him. So let's see, who would like to read this second teaching about the basis of the word, the expression Adonai, my lords? Tina, would you like to do it? Okay, great. Thank you, Susanna.
A rabbinic saying was based on the reading of 18:3, not as my lords, but as eternal ones, suggesting that Abraham addressed God directly. But when he saw three men approaching, he excused himself in order to show them hospitality. Hence, greater than the reception of God is the practice of hospitality.
Thank you. Thank you. So the Jewish teaching, greater than the reception of God is the practice of hospitality. So let's unpack this a little bit and see this, because this can mean two different things. When the text literally says at verse 1, the Eternal appeared to Abraham, and looking up he saw three men, and he bowed to them. One way to understand this passage on the face of it is 1 and 3 are the same. These three men are literally God's representative. They are angels, and they are angels. That's how we're going to see them reveal themselves as God's angels. And they have a divine message to give Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah, Sarah, you're going to give birth to a son at your advanced age, and his name's going to be they named the name Isaac. But anyway, they have a message. In Judaism, angels exist. They have a message to deliver human beings. They are God's intercessors, God's heavenly court. They do God's bidding. They are not free agents. Their sole purpose is to complete a divine task. So, when the text says that the Eternal appeared to Abraham, then these three men, one explanation is Abraham does recognize that they are divine. They are a manifestation of divine beings or angels, God's representative, and therefore it's the same thing. Adonai and the Eternal from 3 and 1 is the same thing. But the interpretation here which Cantor mentioned with this text says, greater than the reception of God is the practice of hospitality. Another way to understand this is that God appeared to Abraham. He was talking to Abraham. And when Abraham saw 3 men in front of him, it's as if Abraham said, wait a minute, God, I need to take care of these guys. They're tired, they're thirsty, they're coming from the desert. Hold that thought, I'll be right with you, God. And that's how the Midrash, that's what the Talmud is saying. That word Adonai isn't my lords like Shakespeare, my lords. It is literally Adonai, my Lord. Now what's interesting about this is in the last Torah portion, Lech Lecha, in chapter 15, that's how Abraham refers to God. Abraham twice calls God Adonai, not Yud He Vav He, not the Yud that we have, but literally these Hebrew letters, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. That's how Abraham refers to God 2 times in chapter 15. So, that's where this teaching comes from. That's where this idea comes from. Abraham is talking to God. He sees 3 strangers. He doesn't know who they are. All he knows is they're 3 hungry people. He says, God, you got to wait. I got to take care of these guys. So it's a very powerful teaching and interpretation of what's going on in the text. It was not uncommon in the ancient world for the divine to be represented by emissaries and angels. And so that's not uncommon, but the tradition is saying that's not what's going on here. Abraham doesn't know they're angels. He doesn't know that yet. They're going to reveal that to him, but not now. He doesn't know. So your thoughts, questions, comments. Yes, Philip. Yes, Susanna, we'll have Philip, if you could, thank you.
So perhaps when he's saying, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass me by. He's saying it more, not literally, but accept me, and I want to be part of your flock, and that I'm embracing your teachings. So don't forsake me, don't forget me, that I want to be part of what you are wanting me to learn.
Nice, beautiful. So a willing servant, a servant's not the right word, a willing partner in the covenant that he had just entered into with the circumcision was a sign of entering into the covenant with God, and he's eager to do that. He's eager to serve God in using all of his gifts and all of his character. Beautiful. Thank you, Philip. Joyce.
Well, I'm about to take the other approach.
Please. You like the other approach?
What happens before and then what happens after, we've sort of all heard about. But at the exact moment where Abraham is sitting at his tent opening and he's talking with the Eternal, and yes, he just had a circumcision which brought him into the covenant. So he knows where he's at with God, I'm hoping. My question, as much as you explained it, he's talking with the Eternal, and he sees these 3 guys, and he says, God, hold on, I'm going to just go deal with them, I'll be right back. So at that moment, we don't know they're angels, we don't know there's a message, we don't know anything.
Yes.
And to me,
yes, that
is not something I can wrap my head around.
Okay.
So I'm having a few issues with that.
Okay, so because if God appeared to you, you'd say to the 3 strangers, hold on a second, guys.
Hang on just a second, I'm really kind of in the middle of something.
I'm in the middle of something, I need you to wait, I want you, give me a second.
So that's where I'm at, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to Philip and the explanations.
Yes.
But at that, and I can read ahead if I need to. At that moment, I'm not with him.
Yes.
So I'm passing it back.
Well, I think that's fair. And I think what Joyce is saying, too, you're reading the text the way the text really is written on the surface. God appeared to Abraham, how? In the form of these 3 men. That's how God appeared to Abraham. I don't know that you're saying that, but you're not splitting that God is walking away from that Abraham's walking away from God right now. Right. 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 All right, well, how about this? Let's and by the way, Joyce, I think you're onto something here. So let's say that we are deep in prayer and we are saying the Shema, and somebody taps us on the shoulder. What do we do? Do we shoo them away?
No.
Give me a second. Or do we turn to say, how can I help you? Or I'm trying to think of another example. If we're doing something very spiritual and we get interrupted, do we go with the interruption, or do we say, "Wait a second, I'm deep in a spiritual moment here, and please wait." Yeah. Oh, let's do the microphone so that people at home can pick you up. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, Joyce, you're being.
I forgot there were people at home.
They're right up there. Don't you see? They're green and they're red.
Okay.
The green and red people up there.
Well, now I don't have anything to say. No, I'm kidding. No, I just, if someone's interrupting me in the middle of the Shema, or if somebody taps me on the shoulder here while I'm deep in thought and or prayer, they're not God.
Yeah.
I'm going to just assume that it's a good question. It's like the story with the butterfly and the boy.
Yes.
My favorite one that you've told forever.
Yes.
Okay, the butterfly. Okay, that's another story. But I don't know, but I would hope that I could tap somebody's hand and move forward and then address them after at my time.
Right.
It's a moot point.
And I guess we would hope, too, if somebody saw us deep in prayer, we would hope that they would wait to, get our attention until we were done, right? Yes. Yes, right. Yes. Yeah, please, Jeff. Yeah, Susanna, let's go. Jeff.
So, questions as far as when the Eternal appeared to Abraham, do we know how many times Abraham had been conversing or with God up to this point? Like, is this a new occurrence? Is this something that's how unique is this?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
We do know in the previous Torah portion that God appeared to Abraham. It was more in a vision. It was more also in a dream. And it's not uncommon, by the way, for prophets, and Abraham's considered a prophet. It's not uncommon for prophets to have visions in a dream, or through contemplation, through meditation. And if we were looking, as the great Maimonides, the sort of logical, rational, medieval philosopher said, whenever the Torah talks about so-and-so is talking to God, you can't see it. If we walked by Abraham, we wouldn't see this. It would be an internal type of vision.
So it's not a burning bush. It's not a
that's the unique thing about Moses.
Yeah.
According to our tradition, Moses had a unique level of prophecy that nobody else attained in our tradition. The burning bush, well, actually, some ideas that the burning bush wasn't Moses' mind. That's one teaching. Another teaching is that Moses' prophecy was so clear and so powerful that it really was a direct communication with God that was at a different level than the other prophets. But it does say in the Torah that Abraham converse with God. I think it was in a dream. We'd have to go back and look at it. And, that's when God said, Lech lecha, go forth. I want to enter into a covenant with you. And then he has a dream. And in his dream, it's foretold that his descendants will be slaves in Egypt for hundreds of years. So, Abraham, this is not Abraham's first rodeo. He's had experiences with God before.
Gotcha. Well, just because I understand what you're saying about it, it's the passage itself is a bit obtuse, right? Like, what does it mean that God had appeared to him? And then when he looks up, the strangers are there. They're not approaching from the distance. They're there, right?
Yeah, like boom,
so something is happening that is clearly out of the norm, I'm assuming. Yeah,
and Jeff, you bring up a good point. The way the text is written is sort of like hine, lo, three people just like appeared out of nowhere. That lets the reader know something unique is going on right here. This is out of the ordinary. So, yeah, absolutely. And there are different ways to read the text. We could split it and say the three men were completely different than what Abraham was doing with God, or that the three men represent Abraham's vision of God. And when they say men, it turns out they're angels. The same way it says that Jacob wrestled with an Ish, a man, during the night, which we know after the end of the story that was an angel. So these angels have the ability to appear as human beings. And these angels are going to eat. He's going to serve them food. So it's unique. It's very special. Yes, Louise?
Well,
thank you, Suzanne.
I just find this so interesting. This is what Judaism is all about, is to read what's written in the Torah.
Yes.
And to argue about it, and
Yes.
to have different opinions all over. And what a wonderful religion we have. Because if you think about it, in most other religions, you're told what to think. You're
Yes.
told that you must do this and you must do that. We have rules and regulations, that's for sure. However, when it comes to the Torah,
Yeah.
we can explore every avenue of what God may have thought, or what we interpret, or what
Yeah.
we think.
Yeah.
And we just this is wonderful. This is what Judaism is all about. And I think it's great.
It is wonderful, and it is great. Yes, absolutely. To be able to interpret, to be able to have different opinions and ideas. And, I was talking to Diageo about this, and we find this in other faith traditions as well, where there's this really deep level of interpretation and exploring the text to try to find the wisdom and God's will in the sacred text.
I wanted to say that, there are absolutely multiple ways that you can read this text, absolutely. And I think that's true for almost the majority of the Torah and probably the rest of the Tanakh. But I think one of the things, I already mentioned the value of hospitality, hachnasat orchim in Hebrew. I think another thing to keep in mind is that Abraham was the first, by this account, was the first person to really believe and connect with the idea of one God, and having made that covenant. And yet, even though he could have certainly presumed that the strangers approaching were not of the same belief as he was, he still respected them, bowed to them, and took them in and showed them kindness. And I think that also shows us the value of B'Tselem Elohim, like being made. Everyone is, regardless of what kind of connection, what kind of covenant you may have with God as being a Jew or being anyone else, I think we are, that's what we have in the Torah from the beginning, from the very first book, from Genesis, is that everyone, all human beings, are created in the image of God. And I think maybe his recognition of that was what started to kind of form that connection to his recognition of the divine being in others too.
Yeah. Nice idea, Cantor. Thank you. Wonderful. And it reminds me, too, of what Mark was talking about when he said, how do you know the person tapping on your shoulder is not coming with a divine purpose? So absolutely, yes, every human being. Let's do, I'd like to do this, just because, by the way, I'm happy to stay here for another hour. I know Scarlett's got to get home soon. So why don't we do this? Why don't we move on, and we can continue the conversation for those who would like to during Oneg, but let's get to number 2, because I think this is what I wanted to bring, something relating to this great character, these qualities that we're seeing in Abraham and Sarah. If we go back to last week's portion, I want to put these two together. So going to the second text from the last week's Torah portion, Lech Lecha, I'm in the middle of the center. It says, Abram, so it's not even Abraham yet, he's Abram, went forth as the Eternal had commanded him, and Lot went with him, his nephew. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, so God changed their names when they entered into covenant. And all the wealth that they amassed, and here's the important thing, and the persons that they had acquired in Haran. So the family left with the persons they had acquired in Haran, but that's not exactly what the Hebrew says. not literally what the Hebrew says. And we're going to look at what literally the Hebrew says when Abraham and Sarah left to enter into covenant with God. They left their homeland. They left everything they knew to go to a place that God would show them, the promised land. They brought with them people that they had acquired, but maybe even more than that. So let's take a look at number 2 now. And who would like to read the first 2 paragraphs of insight? Yeah, thank you, Scarlett.
It's the top right corner.
Yes, top right.
The literal meaning is the souls they had made. The Midrash understands this anachronistically as referring to converts whom they had led to belief in the one true God. Rav Huna said Abraham converted men and Sarah converted women.
Okay, thank you, Scarlett. So literally the text, and that's why I highlighted it, says Ve'et hanefesh asher asu v'charan. Literally, the soul they had made in Haran, or the souls they had made in Haran. Nefesh means soul. So then again, the rabbis are reading this. Literally it says, wait, what do you mean the souls they had made in Haran? They converted people to the one true God, to monotheism. That's what they did. They were bringing people to God. And that's why, for example, when people convert to Judaism, they take as their last name, so let's say someone converts and their name is Rebecca, they take the name Rebecca. They are usually automatically given the name Bat Avraham v'Sarah, because Abraham and Sarah were the first 2 Jews, so spiritually they are the spiritual parents of those who convert. And why are they the spiritual parents of those who convert? They were the first Jews, but again, because of their character and because of what they did, entered into a covenant with God, is they brought people into the religion with them. And again, it's based just on the Hebrew literally says in the souls they made. They were soul makers. They were soul makers. So let's continue with that, and then I want to ask you a question. Who would like to? Scarlett, you want to continue for that reason?
For that reason, when converts to Judaism are given a Hebrew name, they are called son or daughter of Abraham and Sarah. Although the women of Genesis seem to play a minor role in what are presented as patriarchal narratives, we find a Midrash pointing to the larger role they undoubtedly played. Sarah was every bit the pioneer and the soul maker that Abraham was.
Thank you, Scarlett. Sarah was every bit the pioneer and soul maker that Abraham was. So my question to y'all is how, because we are all descended from Abraham and Sarah, spiritually, how are we soul makers in our lives? What do we do in our lives that make us soul makers like Abraham and Sarah? Yeah, Susanna.
I think what makes us soul makers is that we have to be nice to one another. We have to respect one another, and even if we don't like what we say or think, we have to be respectful and give thanks to everything.
So to be respectful, to be kind to others. Yes, that's a way that we can be a soul maker. Yeah, Mark.
Hi, I think it's that, but also we're kind of the prophets also. So as we meet other people and we share the knowledge and the legacy of Judaism with others, we're moving it forward. So we're basically acting on behalf of Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah, right. So when we bring our children into Judaism and teach them Jewish traditions and Jewish values and Jewish holidays, we're creating souls in that way as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and sharing the Jewish traditions with other people.
Or if you, even when you have like Passover and you invite strangers into your home,
yes,
and you say, you know what, even though you don't celebrate Judaism, I'd love to share this holiday with you.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you're exposing our religion to others. It may spark them to want to join us. It may just educate them, but the point is that you're moving it forward.
You're moving it forward. And it may be that they are, what they learn from Judaism, they can apply it to their own religion.
Correct.
And deepen their soul within their own faith.
Correct.
And by the way, I love how you brought in the Passover Seder. We talked about the word hospitality, haknasat orchim, which is the mitzvah of what Abraham and Sarah did by welcoming those 3 strangers. When we invite people into our home for a Passover Seder, for a Shabbat dinner, that is haknasat orchim. We are fulfilling and practicing the mitzvah of what Abraham and Sarah did in this Torah portion. So, yes, very good, very good. I wonder if some other people have some thoughts. Anybody else want to describe how you're a soul maker? Forgive me for saying it that way. I was being overly dramatic. Has there been a moment in your life where you felt like you were developing somebody's soul, that you were inspiring their soul, touching their soul? Yeah, Susanna, we'll have Louise share. Yeah.
Well, you touched upon it already, but I was going to say it before you said it. And that is through our children. I mean, that to me is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is that we raise our children in Judaism. We celebrate the festivals. We teach them from the Torah.
Yeah.
And then they have children and they do the same thing, so that the tree of life sort of goes on and on and on.
Yes.
And I think that that's really what we're here for, is to make souls and to tell other people, not that some people don't have children, so tell friends, relatives, other relatives, to pass on what we know about Judaism and what we've learned to our children.
Yeah.
And other children.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Beautifully said, beautifully said. And Susanna, you had responded this one, so I wonder, Joyce, did you want to add? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a convert, born and raised Catholic, but there's 5 of us siblings, and we've all gone different ways spiritually.
Yeah.
Seriously, they've been to so many ceremonies here at Temple, bar and bat mitzvahs, our vow renewal. So they've been at my home when we've lit Hanukkah candles. So interestingly enough, one of my sisters is an avowed atheist forever. But she's the kindest atheist I have ever met in my life. She does tikkun olam. She gives back. She feeds the homeless. She brings food for the homeless's pets. She gives throughout the community. She has said to me, if I had to choose a religion, not that I will, it would be Jewish. And I think that's part of her learning, seeing and watching what my family, what we do as Jews. Because we practice it, we preach it, and she has seen it, and I think it resonates with her. So She's an atheistic Jew.
All right. Well, making souls.
I want to add one thing.
Yes, Suzanne.
I don't mean to make a long conversation. It's just that I can relate to what Joyce is saying, because my mom's side of the family don't believe in God, and I pray for them to do it. Because, we can't force anybody to believe our belief or whatever they want to believe, but we just have hope and peace, and I pray for them.
Oh, that's thoughtful. And I agree with you. We shouldn't be forcing our beliefs on anybody else. Everybody is free to choose. And along those lines, the reason I sort of want to combine these two is in addition to everything that we said, I also think that Abraham and Sarah were soul makers by the example that they led through their character. And I think, how I would answer the question is, how are we soul makers? We are soul makers when our character inspires others through some of the things that I've talked about, when we're kind, when we're compassionate. Scarlett, just to give you a little bit of indication, she'll talk about justice tomorrow. When we are just, when we are fair, when when we are courageous, when we are living our lives in such a way that we elevate other people's lives through our example. And not just through our example, but when we see other people living their lives in such a way that it elevates our lives and it inspires us to want to do better and to be better people and to make the world better. That to me too is how Abraham and Sarah were soul makers through their character, how we can be soul makers through our character. And that's not dependent on religion. It's our religion helps us cultivate that character, but it's not dependent on a particular religion or a particular belief. It's really the approach that Judaism takes is it's through mitzvot, it's through action. Our actions speak louder than other things. And so through our actions, can we create souls and inspire other people's and touch other people's souls and bring the B'Tselem Elohim that Cantor talked about. Let people know through our actions that we recognize they are created in God's image. And so thank you all for the conversation. Appreciate it. And like I say, this is rich material in Genesis. Thank you to our Bema guests for coming down. Susanna, thank you for helping us out and passing the microphone and contributing. Well, we know too that we are creating souls when we extend our love and support to people who are sick. We are strengthening their soul and the souls of others through helping those who are sick or injured. And so we pray now for those who we know who are sick or injured that they experience a complete healing, a healing of body and a healing of spirit. We're on page 371 in our prayer book, or the laminated sheet before you has the Mishaberach prayer of healing listed on it. Please join us.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Mekor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
Well, at this time, we invite you to offer the name of someone you know who's in need of healing. Our Mishaberach prayer is for them. I invite you to please raise your hand and call out their name. Sally? Yes. Joyce? Yes, Scarlett, please. Yes. Well, we think of all of them, and we also include in our prayer of healing all the people listed on our Mishaberach page. We pray in our hearts for these temple members, all these temple members who are in need of healing, all these family members who are in need of healing, and all these friends and coworkers in need of healing. So we now continue our prayer of healing together.
Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We pray they're all healed. Well, we come now to our concluding prayers. We turn to page 586 in our prayer book, page 586. We're in the middle of the page. We come to the Adoration Prayer, Aleinu. I invite you to please rise for the Adoration Prayer.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated, everybody.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Well, our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our family members who have died, our friends who have passed, members of our community, members of every race and nation who are a blessing to humanity. We think of them now, we honor them through our memory and through our prayer. As I mention the name of a loved one who has passed, I invite you to please rise, and in just a moment, we'll all then stand together as a community to recite the Kaddish Prayer. This Shabbat, our Kaddish Prayer is for Timothy Murphy, Stephen Snitzer, Anita Honey Barr, Joan Keffel Ettlinger, Janet Jeffries, Jennifer Woody, Nancy Lord, Barbara Bolter, Sandra Gainan, Charlotte Hellman, Sylvia Miller, Karen Ness, Fred Michaels, Linda Luna, Dr. C. Harold Cohn, Barbara Abraham, and Ernestine Erkin. And for those who are observing Yahrzeit tonight, the anniversary of the death of a loved one that is commemorated this week, we remember Ferdinand Barr, Samuel Sheehan. We remember Richard Elwood, Cheryl Wiltrout. We remember Mark Allen, Sherman Zaks, Arcady Alex Kazoy. We remember Larry Moskowitz. And Melvin Parnes, Selma Poland, Barbara Ross, Bella Sang, Rachel Gottlieb, Rose Spiel, Pamela Summer. We remember Andrew Hank. We remember Jack Spillman. And Philip Alexander, Maurice Greenberg, Aaron Hackle, Rabbi Moses Krellenstein, Joseph Miller, and Irving Schneider. Is there anybody who's mourning a loss whose name was not mentioned? And if so, we invite you to please raise your hand and mention that name now. Yeah, Bruce Hart. Well, for all of them, we now stand together as a community of family and friends. We thank God that they were with us, that they were a part of our lives. So we turn now to page 598. Page 598. And we pray together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Bi'alma divarach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chayechon v'yomechon. U'v'chayeh d'kol beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam ulmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudasha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Toshwa v'nechamata. Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. May we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, Amen. And please be seated, everybody.
We'd like to take this opportunity to complete that mourner's Kaddish prayer with Oseh Shalom, a prayer for peace.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, man.
Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor, for an inspiring service and lessons of Abraham and Sarah. Thank you, Rabbi. And congratulations to Scarlett, our upcoming bat mitzvah. Tomorrow, big day. It'll be very exciting. And thank you for leading us tonight as well. Shabbat Shalom. The events upcoming at Temple Sinai. We have Scarlett Kirschenbaum's bat mitzvah tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. On Tuesday at 7 p.m., we have the Ellis Island Name Change Myth, a unique adult education Zoom event featuring guest speaker Laura Gold. And please remember that next Friday is a Kabbalat Shabbat service with an early start time of 6:15 p.m., preceded by an in-person oneg at 5:30 p.m. You'll find details about this and much more in the weekly TSG email blast. Tonight's flowers are presented by Jennifer and Jeffrey Kirschenbaum in honor of their daughter Scarlett's bat mitzvah, Louise Mary Spillman for the art site of her husband Jack Spillman, Lori and Yaniv Bashan for the art site of Lori's father Richard Elwood, Heather and Arthur Ross for the art site of Arthur's stepmother Barbara Ross, and Joyce Moskowitz for the art site of her husband Larry Moskowitz. At the conclusion of service, everyone is invited to join in the oneg hosted this week by the Kirschenbaum family in honor of Scarlett's bat mitzvah. For everybody's health and safety, please keep your masks on except when eating. Kaddish and Motzi will happen in the social hall when we're which we're happy to say will be visible on the stream for anyone or everyone out there watching from home. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. And we come to our closing song before our Oneg Shabbat tonight.
Yes. So you can follow along on page 625 for Adon Olam. Many of you know my personal favorite tune for Adon Olam is the Scarborough Fair melody. So if you're familiar with that one by Simon and Garfunkel, you can join along.
And please rise, everybody. We'll get our bodies into our prayer and our music.
Adon Olam Hashem Allah B'terem kol yetzir nivra Lein nasa v'chefzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra Ve'acharei kiblot hakol Levado yimloch nora Ve'hu haya ve'hu hover Ve'hu yiyeh b'tifara Ve'hu echad v'ein sheni Lehamshil lo lehachbira Beli reishit beli tachlit V'lo ha'oz v'hamizrach Ve'hu eli v'chai go'ali V'tzurch ali be'et Sarah Ve'hu nifsi umanos li Menat kosi be'yom ekra Beyado afkin ruchi Beiti shon ve'a'ira Ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Dan. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Philip.